You are listening to the Success Leaves Clues podcast,
where we're having conversations with regular people doing outstanding and legacy-changing things in corporate America and entrepreneurship.
If you're looking for the blueprint to help you make less mistakes on your journey to freedom and ultimate purpose, then this is the podcast for you.
And now, here's your host, Dr. K. Dr. K.
Hey, I'm excited to be here today with a journalist, an entrepreneur, and a podcast host herself, Helen Croydon. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, first of all, you're not in the United States.
No,
where are
I'm
you
in the
located?
UK. So I'm in the UK. I live in a town called Brighton, which is about an hour south of London, on the coast by the sea. It's gorgeous. But my business that I run is based in London. So we're a hybrid model. We work remote most of the time, and then we come into the office 1 or 2 times a week.
Yeah, so thanks a lot for working with me. I know it's been tough getting the schedule together with the time zone differences, with your busy schedule. And so I really appreciate you coming on and sharing with the guests today.
Oh, no, that's fine. Likewise, I know what it's like with busy schedules and people running businesses.
Yeah. Your show, tell us a little bit about your show, your podcast, and what you do for the audience.
Yeah, sure. So, predominantly I run a PR agency, which is called Thought Leadership PR. And we specialize in, as the title suggests, thought leadership, promoting thought leadership, or personal PR, you could call it. I guess they all fall under the same umbrella term of profile raising. So what we do is we try to raise people's profiles so that they become thought leaders in their industry. A part of that is getting our clients into the media, getting them thought leadership articles, which we try and help them formulate ideas for, and we help them write them, and then we help them place them in the media. We try to get them onto podcasts like this one, perhaps, and we try to get them speaking engagements, and we help with their LinkedIn presence as well. And there's various other things as well, like just giving basic advice on their SEO and their websites. But the main thing is the writing and placing of thought leadership articles and media coverage. So because of that, we have to know a lot about how the media works and what I guess slots and opportunities are available for our clients. So, and that's where my podcast comes in. So I host this podcast called The Media Insider. And again, as the title suggests, it features interviews with insiders in the media, i.e. editors or producers at publications or broadcast programs. And I interview them on exactly what their publication covers, what the regular slots might be, what the regular features might be, so that we can understand, or the listeners can understand that publication and then think how their story or their expertise might be able to fit.
Yeah, you're really building a brand for an individual, like you said, and that's new to me because when I think about PR, I don't think about a firm, such as Thought Leadership. And I think about a company, right? So you think about branding for either a celebrity or a corporation. Why is it important to have this kind of PR and branding for an individual?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And exactly, we do specialize in that personal PR, and a lot of people are surprised by that or don't quite understand, what it is. Why it's important is because it builds an authority it cements your expertise. I mean, it's not necessarily important for certain businesses and for certain positions, but I think for anyone who has some sort of subject matter expertise or who is leading a team, leading a business, wants to get their unique insights or their unique opinion or view on something into the public domain, then it's important. And the reason that I focus on personal PR specifically, there's 2 reasons actually. One is because there's just more opportunities, PR is becoming so competitive. If you go to a journalist and say, hey, we've just launched this new product, or we're running this event, or we've just got a new CEO. The journalist's like, so what? There's thousands and thousands of companies out there. So, but if you're PRing a person, so the person behind the business, like the CEO or anyone in the C-suite, really, they've got opinions, they've got expertise, they've got a unique insight on something. So they can give quotes to journalists, or they can go on a podcast, or they can give a talk. So from my view, it's just more. There's more opportunities. And of course, the objective is usually to promote the business, because the business is going to get a mention by default of the person's name. But that isn't we don't focus on the news of the company. We focus on the expertise, of the leader. So that's the first reason. And then the second reason we focus on that is just because that's where my experience and background comes from. So I'm a former journalist and author myself. So I had to raise my own profile. I spent years, pitching myself to the media, doing talks to promote my books, etc. So I kind of learned how to do it, and I learned what worked and what didn't work, and the concept of the principles of how to develop a story, or how to pivot your expertise into a way that the wider public will find interesting. So I guess I just figured out a formula and then made it into a service for other people who want to raise their personal profiles.
Yeah. Why journalism? How did you find that career path? How did you know you wanted to be in journalism?
Oh, yeah. I've had a career that's kind of jumped around for all different things. I don't think I ever found what I really wanted to do. I'd always wanted to be a writer. Well, I did find what I wanted to do. I was a writer for a while, but it's so hard to make it work money-wise, as anyone listening to this podcast who's tried to publish a book, will know it's great for status, great for thought leadership, great for getting your views on, but you can't live on it. So how did I become a journalist? I had always wanted to be a writer. And I didn't start off as a journalist. I started off as an accountant. Would you believe it? Not my thing really. But left university, didn't know what to do, and got one of these graduate training schemes. And my degree was Japanese, and this company that I went to work for had a Japanese division, so that's why I got the job. Was not cut out for the corporate world at all. So then I decided, right, you know what, I've always wanted to write. Let's leave and go back to college and do journalism. So that's what I did. So then I worked in local radio. So I just ended up, my first journalism job happened to be in broadcast journalism rather than written journalism. And that was just an accident, really. And so I ended up in radio and then in TV news for several years. And then I had a career crisis again, because I suddenly thought, hold on a minute, I became a journalist because I wanted to write, but I'm not writing, I'm just editing, I'm editing scripts, and I'm editing audio, and I'm editing pictures, so let's try again. So I left again, and then left my career in broadcasting. I worked for quite a big broadcasting organisation in the UK called ITN, which is one of the main news providers. So I left that job and went freelance so that I could pitch stories to the media from the outside, and I did, and I did that for several years, and I think I was published in most of the UK national papers at some point. So really built up a strong understanding of what editors want, what is a story, how you can, the different formats for stories, and how you can pivot your expertise to kind of get in the door, sort of thing. And but it was always a struggle, it's being a freelance writer, it's so competitive, and it's a few £100 here, and I say quid, and your American audience, pounds, right? It's a few £100 here and a few £100 there. And I'd be getting, I'd go onto TV and do some commentating sometimes. And again, it's really unreliable. It's a massive high when you get a job. You go onto Sky News or BBC and you review the papers or whatever. It's a brilliant high. But then you don't hear from them for weeks, and you think, oh gosh, what, where's my next role coming from? And then I wrote, within that time I've been freelance, I wrote 3 books, one of which was my first one was a dating memoir. So I kind of don't, I sort of try not to speak about that one as much these days. That was in my younger, wilder days, but the book sold really well. Made family Christmases probably awkward for a few years. But the book did well. That cemented my name as a writer. So again, and a commentator on that area. So I was doing that, writing, commentating, writing books for about 9 years. And then I thought, this is so difficult, not really earning that much money. But at the same time, people were coming to me and saying, oh, wow, I've seen you on the BBC reviewing the papers. How can I do that? Or I've seen you write for this paper. How can I do that? And I started to think, I've got all this expertise that I'm taking for granted that other people want to know about. So I just started to do bits of consultancy, bits of media training. And what I realized is interesting, and this goes back to the whole value of PR. What I realized is that having a profile, doing all these things in the public eye, getting an interview on a podcast or getting an interview on a TV or radio or writing an article in the media does have value, has massive value for status, right? So if you're running a business or if you have a service at the end of that to lead people to, then all that media exposure's massive value. But if you're just a journalist per se and you've got nothing to there's no kind of call to action to what you're doing, there's no value. You just get paid a small fee. So I started to think, well, there's all these people who run businesses and services who do want that media exposure. I know how they can get it. And for them, there is value because they can lead people to their business from that. So that's what I did. And that's how my business came about, was deciding to specialize on that, getting people, into the media, with a view to promoting their businesses.
Yeah. During this time in your life, did you know you were going to be successful? Because you're going through all of these struggles between different parts of your career. And they were successful at the time. But then you said, look, I don't know if this is exactly what I want to do. I don't know if this is going to pay well. Did you know it was leading to something?
No. I've always had a crisis. I've always had a career crisis. And this is a really interesting topic you brought up, because I think success is defined by so many different things, isn't it? And I never felt successful, probably because I never was in a position in my career where I was earning a lot of money. And I always felt like I wasn't quite where I wanted to be. Yes, I had a book published and it did well, but it wasn't a bestseller. It was still pretty good, but it wasn't right up there. And yes, I got the odd TV gig, but I never got kind of a regular thing. So that's so interesting that you say this, because from the outside, I think people did think I was successful. I never felt it because it was still short of where I wanted to be. So there's this disconnect. And actually, and that's very frustrating for people who feel that. So, so the answer is no, I never felt successful until recently. And now I've got my own business, and I do feel successful in that because I'm doing what I want, and it's going somewhere. However, it's hard running a business, and you still have crisis of confidence as a case, because it's up and down, and it goes really well, or then you have a bit of a rough patch. You have problems with a team member, or so many things which we can talk about later in terms of challenges of business. But it's in terms of feeling successful, I don't know if anyone ever feels that, or perhaps it's a type of personality, because I think that the people that are always striving for something, they're never quite, if you're never quite at the position where you want to be, then you're never going to feel successful, right? And perhaps that's the driver to make us keep going. Yeah,
it makes you keep going, because you reach a level and then you're always looking for the next level of success, the next achievement. You write a book, but then you're looking at the next book you're going to write, or the next publication. Yeah. And so sometimes it takes a moment to sit back and realize how far you've come. And not to mention, you're probably living somebody else's dream, right? Somebody else is now, striving to live Helen's life.
Yeah, probably. But then I think that's that's a trap we fall into. Someone else is never living the dream, because and I never feel that about other people. I never look at someone and admire them and think, oh gosh, I wish I lived their life, because I always know that whatever you see or the thing that you admire is just one part of that person's life. And there's probably loads of
Absolutely.
other stuff underneath, loads of other struggles or things about their life or their personality that you wouldn't want. It's funny, actually, because someone asked me the other day, who do you most admire? It's a common question, isn't it? In all these like quizzes or various things like that. And I never have an answer to that. Because there's aspects of people I admire, or there's but there isn't like one person I admire. And so I think anyone that thinks, oh, you're living the dream is anyone who thinks that about anyone, I think they're a bit deluded or they're not seeing the bigger picture.
Wow, you're absolutely right. And when you step back and look at it, it's you're only seeing a silo or a segment of their life. Maybe they're very successful in their career, and you got high performers in the corporate sector or something like that. They go home and they really don't get along with their family, don't get along with the kids, and not happy.
Yeah. Or they or they have to get up at 6 a.m. to get everything in, and they might be under, overstressed, underslept. There's, you just don't know what sacrifices people have made to get there, or what isn't working on the underside.
Yeah, that's right. How do you deal with entrepreneurship? Because this sounds like, well, maybe it's not. I was going to say this is your first business, but then essentially you was a consultant and you was freelancing. So that was entrepreneurship in itself too.
Yeah. But this is the first time I've actually run a business. It's very different, I think, being a consultant, and I suppose that was being freelance, describing that as being freelance. So yes, still being self-employed and still having the disciplines, I think, are the same. But actually running a business is completely different to anything else I'd ever done in my career. And I can absolutely hand on heart say it's the hardest thing I've ever done. And it is harder than writing a book. It's harder than studying Japanese, which is what I did at university, and I thought that was hard. It's harder than I in my spare time, I'm a endurance athlete. I'm really into triathlon. That's my hobby. Okay. That's hard physically, but honestly, nothing is harder than running a business. And I have huge admiration for people that that start and build and run businesses with, upwards of 20 people. I just think, how have you done it? So my business has, I have 6 permanent team members now, plus a few freelancers who are kind of regular team members. And I feel that's a massive achievement because I had no business experience really. So, but to do that has been so difficult because there's no manual for it. And perhaps it's easier for someone who has worked in a corporate environment or maybe an agency environment, perhaps it's easier. But because I've got that media background, which has been very freelance, the media world lends itself very well to freelancing. I haven't had much of that experience of dealing with clients, kind of having to produce documents that are client ready. When you work in a newsroom, it's just stuff just needs to get out on a deadline. There's none of this, let's quality check something for the client, or let's have a meeting and align on like what we're going to say. It's just, you just work into a deadline. It's just get it on air. And that's completely different to working in a services industry, which is where, you've got clients, you've got to have a protocol for communication. You've got to have consistent branding, consistent languaging, how the team send emails or coordinate. It's just got to all be aligned. And for someone like me who works in media, never had any experience of that. So starting a business from scratch is so hard. Everything from figuring out what it is you actually do, what your specialism is, figuring out what your price is, figuring out what sales technique. I've never done a sales call in my life. Marketing materials, what to put in that marketing, what do they want? And then, then you've got all just the admin things, invoicing, the registration process, the legal side of it. And then once you grow and you need people to help you, then you've got to recruit, and getting your first recruit's really hard because you're just a one-person band and no one wants to work one-on-one with their boss, right? So it's like you got to find someone who's willing to kind of come and work for you. And most young, ambitious things, they want to work for like a massive company. I mean, everything about it is really hard. And then at the different stages, it gets, you think, okay, I've got that right. I've got 3 employees now, so we're on our way. We've got branding, we've got consistency, we've got a system, we've got a server, but then it gets harder because then you have like recruitment. Then you've got to recruit again, and you have different problems. Then you need more. The bigger you get, you need more legal protections. You need standardized contracts. So it's never ending, really. The challenge is that when you're small are different to the challenges when you grow, but there's just more challenges, but different.
Yeah, you're right. It's never ending, and it's especially when it's new to you. There's so much information, so many things you have to learn, perfect, and you don't know what you don't know. So how do you keep going? Because there's always more work, right? But you got to shut it off at some time. You got to get rest. You got to have a work-life balance. You have to enjoy, family or personal time. You got to train for those triathlons.
Yeah.
So how do you know, basically when to shut it off, because you're doing it all alone, or, with a small amount of resources to start out with.
Yeah. I think it's really important that entrepreneurs do have boundaries, I think. I've got a few boundaries, but one thing I will say before I say what my boundaries are is that I still think, for me, and this depends on your personality type, for me, the trade-off is still worth it. So while it is really stressful running a business, I personally find it more stressful being in a working environment where I'm working for someone and they're telling me what to do, and I don't feel that what I'm doing is kind of has any reason to it. Like I hate that. I hate working in if someone says do that kind of for the sake of it, or be at your desk for 9 for the sake of it, when I might be more productive if I got in for 10 and had an extra hour's sleep, that kind of thing, that sort of thing, I hate. So, because it's not logical to me. So I still think I'd rather have the stresses of running a business than being confined to someone telling me what I need to do. I don't mind people telling me what to do if it makes sense, right? Yeah. Of course. No, it's not that I've got an authority problem.
You can sit in the office and you waste 8-9 hours a day, but I could have did all this work in 2 hours, but it's just the fact that you want me here for 8-9 hours. Yeah. You don't care about the productivity. You just care that I was here for 9 hours.
Yeah.
But I could have done it in 2.
Yeah. So it's those kind of things. Just I think having control of my time is so valuable to me. Yeah, and that is worth all the stresses of running a business. I would really struggle going back to working for someone else. I really would. Unless I had freedom within that role. But the reason for that is because of my boundaries. So my boundaries are, I have my mornings to me are really sacred. And I love to, that's when I do my fitness. I'm really into my endurance sport. And I need to do it in the morning because for so many reasons, it's just gets out the way. Do it before breakfast. Do it kind of, because once I start work, then I just get so into the work that I either can't stop in the evening, or I'm so mentally exhausted that I don't want to do anything. But you do it in the morning, you get daylight, you get fresh air, you get it out of the way. And that's my thing. And then my other thing is I always try and get sleep. So I'm not a natural early riser, really. And I think sleep's so important. So I try not to set my alarm. I mean, obviously, sometimes you have meetings. I can't always do that. But I try and sleep. I want to wake up naturally. So that means sometimes it's like, so I do that, and then I do my fitness, and then I like to have kind of a good, healthy breakfast. Sometimes it is 10:30, even 11 before I start. So, but I will go on late into the evening, and I work weekends. So, and that for me is the most productive. So, and I just think I do the thing that I love, and I get, my routine in. So that's how I keep my boundaries as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. You really love your fitness and it's become a part of your lifestyle, your routine. When was your first triathlon?
Oh, that was, I got into all that side of things in 2013. So like nearly 10 years ago now.
Wow.
I started off by joining a running club and I got really into the running side. And then it became a bit of an addiction because I think I realized just kind of what I can do, what the body can do. So from the running club, and then I started cycling, and then I got into open water swimming. So I think my first triathlon was 2014. But there was a whole door into endurance sport that opened in 2013. I remember it very well because I had just reached a point in life where I've kind of wanted to stop partying and drinking. Not that I was massively into that, but it just felt that every social event I had revolved around drinking. It wasn't that I had a drinking problem or anything. It's just there was no alternative. That's all there was. It was like, you meet a friend, let's go for a drinking dinner or lunch on a Sunday, and there was always a beer with it. And it was just like, God, is this all there is to life? Just sitting around and drinking, and you go on holiday and it's like, okay, what are we going to do? Walk around cafes and bars and just drink. And I just thought, God, there's got to be something more to social life than this. So I went along to a running club and that was it. I just realized that there was groups out there that did all these fun things on a weekend that was still quite wholesome. That opened a door. And in fact, that's what my third book is about. So I mentioned before that I've written 3 books. That's actually what my third book was about. It's a memoir about discovering endurance sport, outdoor sport, and the wholesome effect that had on my life. And also the realization that we can all do so much more with our bodies and our mind than we realize we can. So I tell that through my own story, but make it applicable to kind of, the wider issue of how much more we can all do.
How do you go about pitching to media? So I know there's got to be an art to it, right? Because like you said, there's so much noise. There's so many different articles, events, things happening that they can write about or even have on the news, for that particular time. So how do you go about making sure what you have to offer is exciting for them or valuable for them?
Yeah, gosh, we could do, a whole series of podcasts on that. And that is the golden question, isn't it? How you get media.
If anybody wants to get the whole series.
Yeah, we'll do a series on it. That is the golden question of PR. How do you get media? And there is no simple answer, because if there was a simple answer, then PRs would be out of the job. And that is it. It's an art. It's very, it's a very much a kind of every which way you can kind of thing. So, but I think there's principles, and the first principle is knowing what it is, knowing how you can help a journalist or how you would fit into the media. Because I think most people think of the media and they think of a news story, right? So they think that, classic company who wants to get some media coverage, they think, right, a journalist is going to write about my business and how we're helping the industry to do X, right?
Yeah.
No, that's a marketing newsletter, right? That's not a story. So I think the first thing is to think about how would either, what is it you want to give to journalists? Is it just a quote? In which case, do you have some expertise on a wider industry topic that you think is relevant of the now? In which case, you're going to be contacting writers who write about a certain industry, and you say, right, I can give you an insight into something that's topical, that's happening right now. Or or are you envisaging an actual full-on article that you could write, which is the thought leadership articles, which is what we specialize in. And for that, you wouldn't contact a writer, you'd contact an editor, because a writer is going to be writing it themselves, right? You want to write an editor who would commission you to write about that. And in which case, for that, you need to be thinking of, okay, what would be an article that I could write that the readers of this publication are genuinely going to find interesting and that hasn't been said before. So again, it can't be promotional about your business. It can't be how we are helping X, Y, Z. It's got to be more about, a wider topical issue. So anyone who wants to get media you've got to be on top of what is happening in the media to know what is relevant, because you've got to have that context to know what's relevant. So, or is it that, you think you genuinely have a news story, i.e. something is, you've got some new research or something like that. Yeah. And if it's a news story, then you need to be pitching it as a news story. And then you'd go to publications that run news stories about your industry. So that's it. You can't answer how to get media until you can actually understand yourself. What is it that I'm actually trying to get into the media? Is it expertise? Is it opinion? Or is it a news story?
Yeah, that's important. I guess most people don't take the time, when I say people, it could be a company as a whole, but they don't take the time to reflect on what they're providing, that how that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Now, my mind is racing. So I usually don't do 2-part questions. I kind of hate them. I like to get a specific answer, but I want to know, what does somebody have to do? What do you recommend somebody does to prepare themselves before they come to Thought Leadership PR? Like, what should I have in place already before I come to you?
That's a good question. What should they have in place? So it depends, because we have different packages. So I say that for people who have no profile whatsoever and need to kickstart their profile. And then we have services for people that already have some profile and they want to accentuate that. So I think for people that have no profile whatsoever, what we start with is kind of looking at their existing profile, making sure their kind of social media profiles or any bio on any website, etc., is clear about what they do. So it's optimized for being found, because there's no point doing any PR, no point actually getting them any publicity if what they do, where they appear online, doesn't show what they're doing. So I think you've got to start by that. Then we need to get some clarity on what it is they can actually talk about. What is their area of expertise? What are the topical stories in the news right now that they can comment on? So that's that people need to have a bit of clarity on that, I think, before they can come to us. Although we do draw that out of them. We have a process where we clarify that. But if they already have their own idea, that it helps. And what else? And then I think, they need to be qualified, know that they're qualified to talk about something. And why I say that is we often get clients who come to us, or potential clients rather, and they say, I want to talk about, I feel passionate about, I'm trying to make up a fictional example because I don't want to give away any clients, but they might say, right, I'm passionate about, saving endangered tigers, right? And they're so passionate about it, and they want to, and they know loads about it because they read about it in their spare time, and they want to go to, the National Geographic, and they want to write a piece about why it's so important to save tigers, but they don't work with tigers. And then there's nothing we can do. And they say, oh no, but I'm doing it, or I've donated loads of money to save the tigers or whatever, but there's no formal qualification. So whatever you want to talk about or write about, you've got to have some background to back it up. You can't just be passionate about it. You've got to have a career history that backs it up, or perhaps you've done some research yourself on that, or perhaps you've had a personal experience that qualifies you. So that's pretty important.
Yeah, so it can't just be solely passion. There's got to be some qualifications and some experience behind that.
Yeah. So what else do we need from them? I think it just, a willingness to express views as well. And this is where, interesting, this is the difference between PR and marketing. And people think they're the same, but marketing is about just expressing the messages of the company and expressing kind of things that you do. And PR is about expertise and opinions on wider topics that's relevant to an audience. So I'll give you an example. We often get, again, people that, prospects that come to us and they just want to talk about like their industry. So for example, a common industry that we get leads for is like founders of tech businesses, right?
Yeah.
So say if, they just want to talk about how the app that they're developing is solving a problem in, let's just say, the HR industry, for argument's sake. Right. But that's not really going to be of interest. They just want to talk about the problems and the solutions. And I use that in inverted commas because that's a really common like marketing term. And they just want to talk about the problems and solutions that their product is helping, right? That's marketing. That would be great as a marketing newsletter. That might be great as a blog. That might be great in the emails that they send to their existing clients. But for PR, what's more, they need to be writing stuff for an HR magazine about, trends in the workplace or the challenges of hybrid working or something. So, so what we need then from people is a willingness to expand their talking points and their expertise to wider topics.
Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that because I guess the line gets blurred sometimes. Even, while we're having the conversation, I'm thinking about marketing aspects when you should actually be focusing more on just the PR side and how you're going to expand the industry and provide value and advance, that sector.
Yeah, absolutely. People come to us, I think, for one of 4 reasons, because there's different reasons why people want personal PR. And one is that they want to cement authority to their personal brand. So they want kind of people to Google them and then some, online articles to pop up when people search their name, because what that means is it's cementing their expertise as an industry expert. So if they already have some warm leads, and then, they're seen to be writing articles in industry publications, and that warm lead is more likely to convert because they're like, oh, okay, they know what they're talking about. So that's the first reason. And then the second reason is they might not necessarily be looking for new clients, but they just want to spread a message. They're just passionate about kind of a cause and they want to lead debate. And we've had a couple of philanthropists actually as clients, and they're not looking to promote their services or anything, but they just feel strongly about something and they want to get their views out there. And then the other reason is we just get a lot of clients who just want clarity, I think, on what they can talk about, and that's where our initial strategy call is the most useful phase of our services for them, because we really scope out like what it is they can actually talk about. And then the other reason I think people want our services, they want that personal PR, is they're pivoting into something new. So they may have they may be in a successful entrepreneur who's had a series of businesses, and then they're opening a new business in something completely new, or they've been an employee, quite a senior employee, and then they want to branch out alone and they want to become a consultant. So they want to kind of suddenly raise their digital profile so that they're found a bit more easily, and they're just kind of pivoting their expertise a little bit.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. I got something that I love to do on every show. So the name of the show is Success Leaves Clues Podcast. So I like to point out a couple of clues that I picked up during our conversation, and I'm quite sure the audience is going to pick up on, some things of their own. So the first thing that I picked up on is your ability to stay focused and persevere. When you were early in your career, it may not have seemed like you was on the right track, but you knew that essentially, if you kept going, if you kept learning different pieces from each, job or position that you was in, it would eventually help lead you and guide you to the right place. The second thing is your discipline. It takes a lot of focus, dedication, time, and energy to do a triathlon, but you still continue even now after, doing several triathlons, still to make that a part of your daily routine. And I know it's not easy. A lot of people can come up with different excuses, different reasons, but that transitions into your success as an entrepreneur, as a writer, as a journalist, because you're taking those same skills and that same discipline and just applying it to business.
Yeah. That's very perceptive.
And the third thing that I noticed is your care for other people. So your business as a whole, thought leadership PR, and then you're providing value and advancing other people. You're helping them become successful in their business and their life. But then not only that, but your employees, your team members, your staff, you're also providing them something and helping them be successful. So how can you not win, Helen? You're helping so many other people that it's just overflowing to you too. Oh, well, let's hope so. Let's hope I do win with this business. Thank you. That's a really nice roundup. The discipline thing, I don't know where that comes from. I think people have it or they don't. Like, I mean, that's probably might not be very encouraging for people that don't have it, but it is something I've always had. And I actually think it's innate because my sister always says to me, God, I wish I had your self-discipline. And I'm like, well, we had the same upbringing. So I don't know where that comes from. I think you can have too much discipline as well, but that's another conversation. I think it's good to be able to turn off the discipline. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because I think self-discipline does not go hand in hand with sociability. Like I think most people like someone who's a little bit like flexible, free and easy, like happy to kind of let deadlines go. Like they're always the people that you kind of want to hang around with, and that's the sort of people you want at a party, right? So I think you've got to be able to turn off the discipline as well, and that's something I've learned to do as I've got older. Thanks for sharing that. That's a great point. So I want to remind everybody out there, if you can leave it until next time. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Success Leaves Clues podcast.
Be sure to follow Dr. K on Instagram at Dr. K Washington or the podcast page at Success Leaves Clues Podcast. We'll see you here next time.